Today is Father's Day, and every year there's a couple services where I do feel like I am held down to a topic because I want to be. Christmas, I will deliver a Christmas message. Easter, we're going to celebrate the resurrection of our Lord. Mother's Day and Father's Day are the other two, and I really feel that mothers should be honored on Mother's Day. I feel strongly about that. I feel that they should be. And fathers, I believe you should be honored on Father's Day. Today, I'm going to preach from a passage that has nothing to do with fathers. It is a Father's Day message, but I'm going to preach from a passage that has nothing to do with fathers. There aren't any fathers mentioned in the story, and it doesn't even speak about God the Father. I mean, we're really talking about a passage that has nothing to do with fathers. When it comes to a passage or for a Father's Day sermon, this one is one of the least likely candidates. So let's go with this one. This seems like a perfect fit for Father's Day. Let me show you. Here's the title of the message this morning. Some medical advice given to you by all fathers. Rub some dirt on it. And by the way, whose dad has ever said that to you? Okay, yeah, rub some dirt on it. You'll be fine. The medical advice of a father, it's a precious thing, isn't it? That's the title of the message, and it'll make sense as we go on. But before we actually go into the passage this morning, I feel that it's important to say something. We live in a day and age where there's a lot of fathers, but a lot of those don't even know their fathers. A lot of these people who have children don't even know they have children. We live in a broken world. In many of the cases, virtue is not something that is to be honored anymore. And this can also be said for many mothers out there also. A lot of the fathers, they don't honor women anymore, and they're not there to raise their children. We can all think of stories like this, and hopefully nobody's connected to that story, but it's very likely that somebody in here is even connected to one of those stories where the man doesn't honor the women, or men don't honor the women, and they're not even there to raise their children. And it can also be said of women also. Absentee parenthood is a huge contributor to our broken society. And that is an understatement. Our society is broken, and absentee parenthood is a huge contributor to why it's so broken. So today, as in every Mother's Day and every Father's Day, I want to deliver a message that applies to everybody in here. So I'm not just speaking to fathers today, even though I do want to honor the fathers today. I want to preach a message that can be applied by every single person here, and at the same time honor the fathers. I want to offer us all something that can help heal our culture as well as honor God. We need both of those things. So I do want to mention that fathers are a very important piece of the family puzzle. Very vital piece of the family puzzle. God gave us both mothers and fathers, and both of them are vital to the upbringing of the children. This is very important. If you've had to raise children without the other one, you realize the job would have been so much easier if you had the other one standing by your side supporting you all the way. It's a necessary thing to have the whole family intact. As we mentioned, on Mother's Day, moms have that nurturing touch. When a child gets hurt, what's the first name that the child calls out? Mom. Okay? So they have that nurturing touch. They call out for mom when they get hurt. But there comes a point when the father is called on too. And I don't just mean when the pickle jar won't open. There's a time when the fathers are called on also. A godly father is not somebody that should be overlooked. It is so important to have godly men in our society. Men of God make a difference, and we need more of them. And that is not just a statement, that is a plea. We need more godly men. We need people who will stand up for the cause of Christ and be a godly example to the next generation. We absolutely need this. We need men who will show their daughters how valuable they are. We need you. We need men who will guide their sons into becoming godly men. We need you. We need this in our society. It's so broken. But as I said, this passage that we're going to use today does not speak of a father at all. But it does show a really, really beautiful picture of fatherhood. Esther was a young girl who had a difficult start in life. If you know the book of Esther, it's only 10 chapters long. You should read it. It's an awesome book in the Bible. Esther has a really difficult start in life. She was born into captivity in a time where her people were looked down upon. The Jews were in captivity. But then things got worse. Something happens to her parents. And we don't know the details, but we do know that a tragedy occurred because they're not in the story. Her parents aren't here. But there is an unexpected father figure that shows up in the life of Esther, in the story of Esther. Look with me at Esther chapter 2 and verse 7. And Mordecai had brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman was lovely and beautiful. When her father and mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. Esther has become an orphan. Her parents have died. We don't know their story. We don't know exactly what happened to them, but we do know they're no longer part of her life. Esther's parents are gone, and Mordecai steps in, her cousin, steps in and raises Esther as if she was his own daughter. This is not something that he was forced to do, but something he felt was right to do. So he steps into that role and he takes care of her. Mordecai is a man in the Bible that's really not expounded on a whole lot. But his message carries him, or his story carries a message that we really do need in 2020. We really do need to follow the example of this guy. In the first chapter of the book of Esther, we see that there's a conflict in the king's palace. And to make a long story short, the king is now in search for a new queen. Okay, we just went through that first chapter really quick there, okay? Something happens in the palace. The queen is no longer the queen, and now the king is looking for a new queen. The king's been advised to put together somewhat of a beauty contest. What you should do, king, is you should put on a beauty contest and search for your new wife. So that's what he does. Young ladies are selected from homes from all around the kingdom. They're taken from their homes in the kingdom, and they're brought into the palace for the possibility of becoming the new queen. They're kidnapped. Okay, let's just say it as it is. All these women have been taken from their homes. They have been kidnapped, and they have been put in a beauty contest. That's one of those stories a lot of times, the only way to explain it is to go, huh? That's really the only definition we have here. They have been taken from their homes, and they've been placed in the palace, and they have now become part of this beauty contest. Well, Esther was one of the young girls that was taken from her home. But look at what Mordecai does when she's chosen. She's selected, she's taken away. Look at what Mordecai does. She is taken from him, but he refuses to leave her. Look at verse 10 of Esther chapter 2. Esther had not revealed her people or family, for Mordecai had charged her not to reveal it. And every day Mordecai paced in front of the court of the women's quarters to learn of Esther's welfare and what was happening to her. At some point before Esther was taken, Mordecai told Esther not to reveal that she was a Jew. Don't tell anybody that you're a Jew. There was a lot of division in the kingdom over the Jewish people, and Mordecai wanted to know that Esther was going to be safe. I want you to be protected, so don't tell anybody that you're a Jew. It also says that Mordecai paced in front of the court of the women's quarters every day to make sure she was all right. I'm just going to throw out a little fun detail here. The preparation for this upcoming beauty contest was 12 months long. And he checked on her every day. This is a good man. It's not her father, but he's raising her. I'm going to take care of you. And when she was taken from him, he refused to let her be out of his life. And he paced in front of the women's quarters every day to make sure that she was okay. This man loved Esther, and he was dedicated to teaching her what was right. And Esther loved and respected him in return. Look at verse 20 of Esther chapter 2. Now Esther had not revealed her family and her people, just as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther obeyed the command of Mordecai as when she was brought up by him. She honored him as a father, and he loved her as a daughter. you can see this relationship is strong. This is a good relationship in the Bible. She may not have known exactly why he didn't want her to reveal her nationality, but she trusted the man who told her to keep the secret, and she decided to obey. I might not know all the details, but I'm going to obey because of the man who told me to do it. And she honored him. After 12 months is over, the king chooses Esther to be the queen, and it changes Esther's life forever. By the way, we are going fast through this story here. There's a lot of details that we're not covering. I encourage you to read the book. She's now become queen. Her life is changed forever, but at the same time, another person is being promoted in the kingdom. Look at Esther chapter 3 and verse 1. After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes who were with him. Haman has now been promoted to one of the highest positions in the land. And the king wanted the people to honor him in this new position that he holds. So he makes a rule. The king is making a rule. The citizens are supposed to bow to Haman when Haman goes by. It's just a simple rule. When you see Haman, you bow to him. But not everyone agreed with this command. Not everyone's on board with this one. Look at verse 2 of Esther 3. And all the king's servants who were within the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman, for so the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordecai would not bow or pay homage. Mordecai knows the rule. He knows what the king said to do, and as Haman passes by, he's supposed to bow. But Mordecai will not bow. He refuses. Even after the king made the order, Mordecai refuses to bow to Haman. It's a simple act. It's not going to take a lot of work. You just have to bow when he comes by. Mordecai refuses to do it. You see, Mordecai had a perfectly good reason to disobey the order of the king. He had a really good reason. Mordecai's a Jew. Remember, this is their people. Mordecai's a Jew, and he's committed to the one true God. He was not going to bow to Haman. He worships God. I'm not going to show reverence to him. I'm not going to honor Haman in the way that you are depicting him. I will honor the one true God. I am not bowing to Haman. Mordecai was a man who was going to stand up for what was right, even when it was difficult to do it. And I'm telling you, this would be difficult to do, because he's also captive. The Jews were in captivity. Mordecai's a Jew. They just made a law that you will bow to Haman, and Mordecai is left standing. He will not bow to Haman when he goes by. Haman was a man who wanted all the honor, and Mordecai at this point just seems to be an interference. I want honor, you're not giving me the honor. You are an interference to my program. When Haman sees that Mordecai is steadfastly refusing to bow to him, he wants to have him killed. Mordecai needs to leave the scene. I want to have him killed. But even death doesn't seem to be a big enough punishment for Mordecai. Haman's an evil man. Like, death isn't enough. There has to be more. So look at verse 6 of Esther chapter 3. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him of the people of Mordecai. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, the people of Mordecai. Here's that underlying conflict between the people of the Persian Empire and the Jewish people. This is that conflict we mentioned just a minute ago. Haman is now dead set on annihilating the entire Jewish people. I want to kill them all. Because of Mordecai's actions, his death isn't sufficient. It's his death and all of his relatives, all his people. I want them all gone. So he takes his idea to the king. Remember, the king does not know that his wife Esther is a Jew. The king doesn't know. You really should get to know the person you're going to marry before you marry him. A little background would have helped here in their little relationship, but the king does not know that Esther is a Jew because she has not revealed her nationality. She obeyed Mordecai. He doesn't know that his wife is a Jew. Haman also doesn't know that his wife is a Jew. So Haman has this idea. I want to get rid of Mordecai and his people. So he takes this idea to the king. Look at verse 8. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from all other peoples, and they do not keep the king's laws. Therefore, it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work, to bring it into the king's treasury. Haman has just presented a hypothetical possibility of an uprising. It's just a suggestion. Are the Jews doing anything wrong? No, they're not doing anything wrong. Are they causing any trouble? None at all. Haman's got a pride issue, and Mordecai has offended him. So he says, let's kill them all. So he says, you've got this hypothetical possibility of an uprising, and it's not good that we allow these people to live in the kingdom also. It was presented in such a way as to force the king's hand into action. Hey, you're the king, you're in charge of this kingdom, and we got a problem here. The king does end up signing the decree, which is in essence a death sentence for the Jewish people, for all the Jewish people. This is where Mordecai does what dads commonly advise doing. The Jewish population just got hit with a potentially fatal blow, and Mordecai decides to rub some dirt on it. They're going to kill us all. They want us wiped out. They want to kill all of us. Mordecai, what do? Rub some dirt on it. We'll be okay. Let me explain this. Look at chapter 4 and verse 1. When Mordecai learned all that had happened, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the midst of the city. He cried out with a loud voice, a loud and bitter cry, and went as far as the front of the king's gate, for no one might enter the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province where the king's command and decree arrived, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing, and many in sackcloth and ashes. Mordecai just started a movement where people were crying out in sackcloth and ashes. They were covering their heads with dirt or ash. That's what they would cover their heads with, showing sincere humility. This was an outward expression of a deep sorrow, sackcloth and ashes. Mordecai has just influenced the Jews in how to remedy their threat, the threat to their people. Rub some dirt on it. Get the ashes. Sackcloth and ashes. We're going to go to God. All of us, let's go to God. Cover yourself in sackcloth and ashes and cry out to the Lord for salvation. Fast and pray and get close to God. This is Mordecai's advice. What do? They're going to try to kill us. What are we supposed to do? Rub some dirt on it. Sackcloth, ashes, go to God, fast and pray. Get close to Him right now. That was his advice. This wasn't a man who knew how to fix the problem. He was a man who pointed to the one who could fix the problem. I'm not the one with the answer, but I know a guy. And let's all get close to him. Let's get very close to God right now. When Esther finds out about what Mordecai is going through, she decides to help. She loves him. She honors Mordecai. She wants to help him. She doesn't want to see him going through this much sorrow, so she tries to lend a hand. Look at verse 4 of Esther, chapter 4. So Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told her, and the queen was deeply distressed. Then she sent garments to clothe Mordecai and take his sackcloth away from him, but he would not accept them. She was trying to ease his pain, but he stood firm on what he needed to do. Here's a change of clothes, Mordecai. I don't want to see you hurting like you're hurting. I don't want to see you in that deep mourning that you're in. So here's a good change of clothes. Just change into that. And it says that Mordecai would not accept them. This was time for his people to call upon God. He knew what they needed to do. When Mordecai refuses to accept the garments that Esther sent, Esther knew that this was a major problem. Okay, this goes deeper than what I understand. What in the world is going on? Why are all the Jewish people clothed in sackcloth and ashes? Mordecai, what's happening? I don't know. From the palace perspective, everything just seemed to be fine. But what was happening out in the community, Esther wasn't able to see that. She doesn't know what's happening, and he refuses to accept the garments that she sent. So she knows there's a bigger problem. Mordecai tells her that the king's decree was that the entire Jewish population should be killed. We're all in danger. Every one of us are in danger. He then tells her to go before the king and plead for their people. Esther, I need you to go to your husband, the king, and I need you to make a plea for the Jewish people. But Esther's afraid, because to go before the king without first being summoned could cost her life. Because you don't approach the king unless he calls you. So she's afraid to make this move. Even the queen needed to be summoned. If I just approach him and he doesn't call for me first, that could cost me my life. So she's afraid. And this is where Mordecai steps up and does what any good father would do. He encourages her to do what's right, even if it's going to be difficult to do. That's a good father. It's going to be hard, Esther. I need you to go to the king, and I need you to beg for the survival of the Jewish people. I'm scared. I don't want to do it. I'm scared to do that. I need you to do what's right, even when it's hard to do what's right. I'm encouraging you to do that. He urges her to follow the Lord even when it's scary to do it. Look at Esther chapter 4 and verse 13. And Mordecai told them to answer Esther, do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? He basically tells Esther that God is going to deliver his people. God is going to be faithful to us. He's going to deliver his people in one way or another. If you don't do this, Esther, God will bring relief from another source. But this might be why he put you in this place at this time. This might be why God allowed you to be taken from your home, brought to the palace. You won the beauty contest. Congratulations on that. Now you're the queen of Persia. This could be exactly why God did all of this. If you refuse to do it, God is still going to keep his promise and he's going to deliver us. But he might want to use you. He might have put you in this place for such a time as this, Esther. This was her chance to be used by God in an incredible way. He's encouraging her to be faithful to God. Be available to God. And she knows he's right. When Esther hears the words of Mordecai, she then asks him to do her a favor. And by the way, he raised her well because of the favor that she's going to ask of Mordecai here. You know, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree here. Look at verse 16 of chapter 4. Go gather all the Jews who are present in Shushan and fast for me, neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will fast likewise, and so I will go to the king, which is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther commanded him to do. Do you see what she just did? You see what Esther just did here? She understood what Mordecai was saying. I understand the danger. I understand what you're saying to me, that God might have put me in this place for such a time as this. Yes, I'm scared to do it. Yes, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. Then she tells him to have all the Jews do one thing for her. Would you go tell all the Jewish people, rub some dirt on it? I'm going. I'm going in. Mordecai, go back to them and tell them rub some dirt on it. I need them to step up, pray, fast, call out to God for me. Specifically, I need all of them going to him for me. Because even if it costs me my very life, I'm going in. She was taught to move even when it's tough. He was a good dad, even though he wasn't her father. He was a good father. He's a good father figure. So I'm going to move. And it's going to be a tough thing to do, but I'm going to need everybody to do something. Rub some dirt on it. I'm going in. I'm going to do this. At the end of the story, we see that the Jews are delivered and Haman is killed and Mordecai is promoted. And if you don't know the story, you should go home and read the story. There's a lot of details missing here in this sermon. Go home and read the story. The book is only 10 chapters long, and they're not long chapters. So it's a real easy read, and it's a good story. Go home and read that. God used Esther to deliver his people in a time when it was almost certain that they were going to be wiped out. The decree was made. They've got the death sentence. She became well known, and the book of the Bible is actually named after her. It's named Esther. But she would have never been the woman she was if it wasn't for the man who raised her. Dads, we need you. You are not a small detail in the family picture. You are a huge, important piece to the family. We do need you. Men of God make a difference. They make a huge difference. When times got tough, he taught Esther to go to God. When the decisions were difficult, but they had to be made, he taught her to seek God first. You go to him. You go to him. Sackcloth and ashes was an outward expression of a heart that was yearning after God. So Mordecai, when he didn't know the answer, he didn't know how to fix this, I don't know what to do. He knew exactly what he needed to do. When the painful times show up in life, Esther, rub some dirt on it. Rub some dirt on it. Go to God. Get close to God. Fast. Pray. Sackcloth and ashes. Show that heart that is yearning for God. Do this. There are going to be some times in life when you don't feel like you have the strength or the courage to go on in all of our lives. Those times are going to come. In those times, this is where this advice is so important. Rub some dirt on it. Now, you don't have to do the physical outward expression, but do it with your heart. Do it with your heart. I'm not strong enough to do this, God. I'm afraid. I don't know how to move forward. That's where this advice is so important. Look at 1 Chronicles chapter 16 and verse 11. Seek the Lord in his strength. Seek his face evermore. When times are hard, when it's difficult and you don't know the answer, go to the one who does. With a heart that is longing for him, go to him. Mordecai taught Esther to do the one thing that would assure a successful life. He taught her to chase after God. But he taught her to do it in a way that's rarely taught. We need fathers who will teach the next generation to seek God in the same way that Mordecai taught Esther to do it. He taught her to seek God with sackcloth and ashes type mentality. I want you to seek God with a heart that is yearning for him, longing for him. Seek him from a heart that is chasing after God. Not just say a quick prayer. No, chase after him. Look at Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 6. It says, but without faith it's impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. The word diligently here means to investigate, to crave, to search out with worship. I'm craving you, God. With a heart of worship, I yearn for you. I need you. That is a sackcloth and ashes type mentality. And he taught Esther, that's how you chase after God. With this mentality. Our world needs to see men and women who are not only declaring this message, but living it out by example. Don't just tell people what to do, show them what to do. We need this example set. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this sermon, absentee parenthood is a huge contributor to our broken society. The next generation is missing a very important piece to that family puzzle. But I would also like to emphasize an extremely significant detail in the story of Esther. Mordecai was not her father, but he filled the void. There are families out there, there are children out there that don't have a dad, or maybe they don't have a mom. But do they have a good Christian example in their society who will step up and fill the void, love them, nurture them, pray for them, and lead by example? Hey, when you go to God, do it with the sackcloth and ashes type mentality. When you're broken, when you're hurting, and when you need to go to God, rub some dirt on it. Do it with a deep longing for Him. You see, a man of God can change the life of a broken person even if they're not that person's father. I've seen it happen. I've had the opportunity to do it myself. You can change the world of the next generation by being a godly father, even if you don't have children. Ladies, you can change the world by being a godly mother, even if you don't have children. You pour your life into the life of that next generation. You invest a godly influence into the life of these kids that are coming up. A man who will point people to God is a need that cannot be emphasized enough. Point people to God. We need men who will lead the next generation into chasing after God with all their hearts. Chase Him. Run after God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Chase after God. The phrase rub some dirt on it is usually used in athletic events. This expression here, by the way, it will stop bleeding. So we got that, does do that. Cause infection too, but it will stop bleeding. So we got that going for us. But this phrase, rub some dirt on it, is used in a lot of athletic events. We need to see people use this spiritually, though. It's used in these events, like in sports. You go to a baseball game or whatever. A lot of times what will happen is a player is going to approach their coach with an injury. Kids will do this a lot. They'll say, I got a scrape. I'm out, coach. I've got a cut. I've got a scrape. Coach, I think I'm dying. You see this happen a lot. And the coach might say, rub some dirt on it. You'll be okay. Just rub some dirt on it. By the way, this is terrible medical advice, okay? And dads, yes, we use it. Rub some dirt on it, it'll be fine. That's not what mom would do, not mom. But rub some dirt on it, it'll be fine. It'll stop the bleeding, but you probably ought to get the dirt out of the wound later too, because it's not good advice. It's not good medical advice. But there's a strange little bit of wisdom found in this advice. The coach is actually trying to get the player to get their mind off of the pain and onto the goal. If you think about what the coach is doing, think about what the coach is doing here. Coach, I've got a scrape on my arm. I think I'm out. I think I'm done for. And the coach says, rub some dirt on it and get back out there. You'll be fine. What the coach is actually doing, the advice that the coach is giving here, is I'm trying to get you to get your mind off of the pain and onto the goal. I need you to leave where you're at, and I need you to focus farther, go deeper. Focus on the goal here. When Esther told Mordecai that she was afraid to go before the king, he reminded her that even though it was going to be difficult, God has placed her in this position for such a time as this. Mordecai, I'm hurt. I'm developing pain here. What do I do with this? Rub some dirt on it. Remember, there's a greater goal. You get back in there. Get back in there. But rub some dirt on it first. Go to God with a heart with sackcloth and ashes. Go to God yearning for him. And then get back in the game. Get back in the game. Rub some dirt on it, Esther. You're going to be fine. There's an awesome God moving behind the scenes. There's a greater goal. Get involved and chase God with all your heart. What a good man. He's such a good man in the Bible. Fathers, thank you for leading the way. Thank you for setting the example. You deserve a day to be honored. And I'm glad we have Father's Day. Honor your fathers. Honor your fathers. Thank you for being the example to the next generation. And you might be sitting there like all of us do and say, man, I wish I was a better example. Because every dad in this room, every dad listening online could probably say that. I wish I was a better example. Well, then rub some dirt on it. Rub some dirt on it. Go to God with a heart of sackcloth and ashes and say, from this point on, make me like you. I want to be like my Heavenly Father so I can influence the next generation like you would want me to influence them. Rub some dirt on it, guys. You're going to be fine. Like, I wish I was better at what I'm doing than I am. Rub some dirt on it. All of us. Not good medical advice, great spiritual advice. Rub some dirt on it. And from this point on, let's continue to give our great and profound medical advice to everybody. But let's do it in a spiritual way. Next generation, seek God with your whole heart. Pray to him with a heart of sackcloth and ashes. Yearn, desire, chase after him, crave after him. Do it like that. Rub some dirt on it. Life is going to be difficult at times. Chase after God. And every day seek the Lord in his strength. Pray. Pray, pray, pray. And when you do it, rub some dirt on it. Stand with me this morning.